Well, a very good evening to you and welcome to the most comprehensive bulletin in the country. This is certainly KTN Prime. My name is Wilson Mburu.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening on KTN Prime. I'm Nancy Kachungira and our sign language interpreter is Meresha Owiti. Now, 1.3 million students could have their examinations disrupted if the teachers' unions fail to agree with the government. That's one of our top stories tonight. Let's take a look at what else is in the headlines. Teachers give the government 10 more days as unions meeting with TSC bears no fruit.
But the other two cabinet secretaries who are waiting in the office of the leader of majority to appear at their time have since vanished.
These ones who have vanished should now come and tell us why they are vanishing.
Parliament versus the executive. Olelenku and Kaimenyi snub MPs, someone says.
And changing times, Catholic bishops propose acceptance of gays and divorcees.
As strong as the KDF has been in our national defense, the fact of the matter is that security is also a shared responsibility.
And KTF celebrates Kenya's warriors battling the Al-Shabaab in Somalia.
Yes, well, as we mentioned, we begin with what was supposed to be a make or break meeting today. But the Kenya National Union of Teachers has actually decided to give the government 10 more days to get its act together before a final meeting to end the deadlock. But here's the twist to the tale. The NUT position is actually different from that of the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, KUPPET, which has warned that it could issue a 7-day strike notice within the next 24 hours. Now, Catherine Omanto has been following the events at that meeting in Nairobi's Upper Hill. We go to her now. Kathy, what is the latest from that meeting?
Well, the latest was that uncharacteristic announcement by Wilson Sossion. Obviously, such meetings prior or in the past events, we've always expected that this is the time when they make the strike announcement or they say that there was a stalemate, because there's always normally a stalemate between the unions and the government. Now, this meeting was called by the government and the Teachers Service Commission to try and find a middle ground so that they give them what they want. As you know, it was a collective bargaining agreement that hasn't been met. And as Sossion says, it's been a discussion since 2012. But I'd like the audience to just listen to this uncharacteristic announcement, which is probably good news for parents across the country.
Though the patience of the teachers has completely run out, we ask our members, we are not going to suffer if we give them one more week. I think we shall be benevolent enough to allow them to organize themselves further so that we can progress with the negotiations on 24th.
Well, that's what Wilson Sossion had to say. Very calm, very, a dedicated announcement. But here's where the confusion was. The confusion now comes when NUT has decided to give the government more time, up to the 24th of October, and KUPPET, which is the Post-Primary Education, Post-Primary School Teachers Union, decided that, well, the talks have collapsed. And this is what they had to say. This is Akello Misori.
Talks have collapsed. And because the government side and Teacher Service Commission has deliberately not presented any offer. And it is unfortunate that the teaching fraternity in this country has been taken in circles because the talks have been a public relations exercise. And on that note, the National Governing Council of KUPPET convenes within 24 hours to issue a notice which will give strategic direction on an industrial action.
As we know, NAT has the bigger share when it comes to members, and they have more control when it comes to negotiations as well. What happens here is that we don't know whether KUPPET will go ahead with the threat and decide to call a nationwide strike, and we don't know whether NAT will decide to call a nationwide strike on the 24th. What we do know is that parents can just sit back and relax. At least parents for the primary school can sit back and relax for some time. Children will be able to go for the candidates will be able to sit for their exams. We know the Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education examinations start on the 21st of October, so that's okay for now. So here's what Sossion had to say about just basically the situation being normal.
We are not about to disrupt the teaching and learning between now and 24. As negotiation goes on, then normal teaching continues until when we record a stalemate. A stalemate under the rules of negotiation must be recorded in the minutes of the negotiations and signed that there is a stalemate. We have not reached that. Once we reach that, then we'll proceed to the next level.
Again, this could have been played into the war, the turf wars or the supremacy battles that have been going on between NAT and KUPPET. It is still not clear. We are waiting for the next 10 days for the 24th of October, where the discussions will continue. And until then, we can only give a decisive answer. But KUPPET says that they will do it in 24 hours. They will have a National Governing Council meeting, and they will decide from there whether to give a 7-day notice for a strike. And that would be post-primary school teachers, that is teachers in secondary schools. And we'll see how that plays out. But until then, that's all we have, and we'll keep you updated. I'll hand you back to Wilson.
Well, thank you very much, Catherine, for that. We'll, of course, be following on that story and see how it develops. Let's move on. And the National Assembly wants the Attorney General, Head of Civil Service, and the Chairman of the Commission on the Implementation of the Constitution sanctioned for what they described as misleading the executive. Angry members of the National Assembly fired at the three officers, saying their council to cabinet secretaries to ignore parliamentary summonses undermines parliamentary mandate. As KTN senior political reporter Sam Ogina now reports, things were made worse by the failure of the Interior Cabinet Secretary Joseph Ole Lenku and his education counterpart Professor Jacob Kaimenyi to appear before Parliament today.
The National Assembly has taken the separation of powers battle right to the doorstep of the executive. Members of the National Assembly have picked a bout with the Attorney General, Professor Githu Muigai, and the Head of Civil Service, Joseph Kinyua, for advising Cabinet Secretaries to skip the Assembly's Committee on General Oversight session.
The other two Cabinet Secretaries who are waiting in the office of the Leader of Majority to appear at their time have since vanished.
Following the directive, despite their brief presence within Parliament buildings, Interior Cabinet Secretary Joseph Ole Lenku and Education Secretary Professor Jacob Kaimenyi vanished just in time they were to appear before the MPs.
In what capacity did Kinyua maybe write that letter? We know the Cabinet Secretary is none other than Mr. Kimemia. So is it true he wrote the letter to advise the CSs not to appear here? Or what is the issue, Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Kinyua is my friend. We've interacted a lot with him when he was at the Treasury. But I felt that that position required some kind of accountability. And that position, we needed to have vetted that position in Parliament so that he can have some respect to Parliament.
Also in the crosshairs was the chairman of the Commission for Implementation of the Constitution, Charles Nyachae. CIC has objected to the parliamentary summonses of cabinet secretaries, saying it was unconstitutional and warned they would go to court to bar the summonses.
He is not the only one who went to a law school. That he is not the only one who can read the Constitution. That he cannot threaten people. That if you don't go my way, I'll go to the courts.
We need to know what they have done. We need to audit what they are about to do, so that these guys, we can clean them out of the table and remain with people who are serious with this country.
Angered by the decision by Ole Lenku and Kaimenyi to skip the session, members of the National Assembly wanted the two sanctioned and are now threatening to take tough retributive measures.
I want to remind them that tomorrow is not far.
Another day will come when we require them to come here to be appointed. And I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, this House has the power to mobilize itself and do justice in terms of proving that this is a House which is independent.
Majority Leader Edan Duale's effort to cushion the cabinet secretaries fell flat. Duale claimed communication breakdown and problems of perception on the committee resulted in the two cabinet secretaries bolting out.
These ones who have vanished should now come and tell us why they are vanishing, and we are sitting here waiting for them to appear before us.
I think it is also important for people to appreciate out there. The Constitution is very clear that nobody or person has authority to make provision having the force of law except Parliament.
Lands Cabinet Secretary Charity Ngilu was the only executive member who honored the parliamentary summonses despite the directive by the President's Chief of Staff to the Cabinet Secretaries to skip the session. Ngilu set the record straight about their relationship with the National Lands Commission.
Obviously, if there's something that we think need to be done differently and they think should be done in their own way, that's where people think there is bad blood. However, I think we are really on course on our targets, on the things that we have got to achieve for the people of Kenya.
The National Assembly amended its standing orders, formed the Committee on General Oversight with powers to summon cabinet secretaries. After it emerged, committee chairpersons provided shallow briefs about the ministries under their purview. Samogina, KTN.
The Big Q.
I like the fact that they're using the word vanish. I would like to know whether they have the cabinet secretaries who vanished have been found since.
It is a very mysterious term, isn't it?
It is a very mysterious term.
Vanishing.
And, you know, in that context, we're asking you on our Big Q tonight, do you think cabinet secretaries should appear before MPs every Tuesday? Do you think cabinet secretaries should appear before MPs every Tuesday?
Yes, as that tussle between the National Assembly and the executive continues to play out, give us your thoughts on that. And you can do so by tweeting us at KTN Kenya, at Kachungira, and at Wilson_Mburu. You can also send us an SMS, of course, 22155. Do start with a yes or no so that we can compile a poll result that we'll give you later on in this bulletin. So next tonight, we go to Eldoret for a rather disturbing story. Now, a 9-year-old girl was actually rescued by police and Uasin Gishu residents from the hands of two first-year students, university students, we understand, who had actually kidnapped her for ransom. Now, we're joined by Mercy Kandie, who is live in Eldoret. Mercy, this is a baffling story. How on earth did university students get caught up in this?
Baffling indeed, as you put it, Nancy. In fact, one of the students who was caught and is currently in custody at the Moyes Bridge police station, still here in Uasin Gishu County, says that he has been approached previously by his colleague or comrade who's currently at large to do a deal, what he called a drug deal, but then he refused to do the drug deal. And this, he said, was his first dance, the attempted kidnapping happened today at around 6 a.m. in the morning when the young girl, 9 years of age, was waiting for the school bus to take her to school. And baffling indeed, the attempted kidnap was done by two first-year university students. Listening to this story.
19-year-old Victor Mwanya is escorted into the Moyes Bridge police station, taken into custody for an alleged kidnap of a 9-year-old girl. He and his comrade, who is still at large, are first-year students at the Egerton University. They had allegedly hired a Toyota Probox in Kitale to carry out the 6 a.m. incident.
Waliniambia ati gari imeniacha, ati nipanda, nikafikiria na wajua, nikapanda, alafu tena wakanichukua.
Vile mama alipeleka mtoto kwa barabara, akarudi kidogo, kuna kitu alikuwa amesahau. Sasa vile anarudi ndio hakikisha mtoto amepanda kwa gari, akaambiwa na watoto wenye walikuwa hapo ya kwamba mtoto ameenda, amewekwa kwa Probox na gari imeenda.
Ameambiwa ni Probox na nyuma walikuwa wamefunga number plate.
Police had to shoot out the tires of the car that was being driven at high speed. The two then abandoned the car and ran into the nearby maize plantation. Residents and police poured into the plantation in search of the suspects. They cornered one suspect.
Kufika huko katikati tulijaribu mpaka karibu tusarende. Baadaye tukasema tuende safari ya mwisho. Nikapata jamaa amekalia mahali miti ilikuwa imepandwa. Amejisuia na nyasi. Sasa kutoa hivi akaniambia usinifanyie chochote rafiki yangu. Sasa nikapiga nduru nikaambia watu ndio amepatikana.
Walikuwa na juice. Natumaini hakupea mtoto ili aweze kusinzia ndio wasiweze ku raise any alarm.
After the brush with the alleged kidnappers, the terrified young girl hangs on tightly to her father's hand. Though visibly shaken, she is safe. Every once in a while, her father slips into deep thought. It could have been worse. The girl walks with a limp. She was later taken to hospital.
Nasikia raha ndani ya roho na nasikia vizuri kabisa sababu tumekuwa na siku ngumu anyway.
The two students, identified as Richard Gitamari, aged 22, studying statistics, and Victor Musango Mwania, 19, pursuing engineering, had allegedly hatched the plot and were to demand for 5 million shillings. Victor says this was his first stunt. He was to get 200,000 shillings.
Yeah, tulikuwa tukidnap mtoto alafu baba mtoto itishwe pesa.
Itishwe how much?
Ndio nilikuja alikuwa itishwe 5 million.
Mwania claims his partner in crime was the son of a businessman who is a close friend to the father of the girl they are accused of kidnapping. The kidnapping incident ended on a rather positive note, with one suspect being caught and the child being safe and sound. Residents here, however, lament they want the security to be beefed up. Masi Kandie, KTN, Moy's Bridge, Uasin Gishu County.
Harrowing experience for that little girl, but, well, it ended well. Let's move on. President Uhuru Kenyatta presided over the Kenya Defence Forces Day at the Lanet KDF barracks in Nakuru County, where he commended the military for upholding professionalism. KDF commemorated the 3rd anniversary since Kenyan military entered Somalia. Kamche Menza has that story.
Hundreds of KDF soldiers gathered to remember their colleagues who have been in the front line battling the Al-Shabaab in Somalia, and to mark the 3rd anniversary since Kenyan military entered Somalia.
You are clad in a combat gear.
Celebrations were held under the slogan, "In honor of our gallant warriors." For the second time in 2 months, the Commander-in-Chief of the Defence Forces donned his military jungles as he presided over the event. The President laid a wreath on a monument constructed in honor of KDF soldiers who lost their lives in the line of duty in Somalia.
Let us not forget that defending our nation and region has never been harder than it is today. We live in an age of potent transnational threats to our security. Severe challenges still trouble our nation and region. Among them, the evil network of terror networks from around the globe. But broadly speaking, we as a nation have, when it matters most, shown a sense of unity and therefore avoided falling for the whims of thieves and murderers.
Those, therefore, that argue that our security concerns today were triggered by KDF's entry into Somalia only need to pause, take a step back in time, and recall some of these events.
Our soldiers, drawn from all our 3 services, remain in combat in Somalia even as I speak, making substantial gains every day for our liberty and well-being.
The President also launched a special book authored by military personnel based on the operations in Somalia. Chief of Defence Forces General Julius Karangi said the proceeds from its sale will be used to improve the welfare of officers, including medical services. Kamche Menza, KTN, from Nakuru.
Asante sana.
We'll take a short break now, but not before we remind you of our big question tonight. There has been a push and pull between the executive and parliament. Some cabinet secretaries vanished, apparently, when they were supposed to be appearing before parliament. And we are asking you, do you think cabinet secretaries should appear before MPs every Tuesday? Do you think cabinet secretaries should appear before MPs every Tuesday? Let me take a very quick tweet here from Ambuli Victor, who says, yes, it is the only opportunity the public has to scrutinize their progress and gauge them.
Another yes here from Sydney Obiero. He says they should, because that's the only way that we can hold them accountable. Share your thoughts with us, and you can do that by tweeting us as well at KTN Kenya, at Kachingira is my handle, and at Wilson_Mburu. You can also send an SMS to 22155. Coming up later, we'll have your feedback and a poll result. We'll take a quick break now, but KTN Prime continues just after this. Just ahead, go easy on court orders, Uhuru tells judges.
You're watching KTN Prime.
Thank you for keeping it KTN Prime.
Now we go to what is seen as a potential breakthrough. Senior clerics taking part in a review of Catholic teachings on the family have called on the church to adopt a more positive stance on homosexuality. A preliminary report written by the bishops during a Vatican synod said that homosexuals had gifts and qualities to offer. Pope Francis convened the synod to debate controversial issues such as abortion, contraception, homosexuality, and divorce. The report does not challenge the church's long-held opposition to same-sex marriage, but some gay rights activists have hailed it as a breakthrough. Conservative groups have, however, rejected the report, with some labeling it as a betrayal. Last year, a survey launched by Pope Francis suggested that the majority of Catholics rejected church teachings on issues like sex and contraception.
Now, Harambes are part and parcel of our society. That was the underlying message in Parliament today, as members of the National Assembly vowed to continue assisting their constituents via fundraisers. This comes after the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission warned that soliciting for funds is against the law and in contradiction to the Leadership and Integrity Act of 2012. The opposition has in the last couple of days raised concerns over the participation of public officers in Harambes in different parts of the country, saying that their involvement was largely seen as a tool for political manipulation and patronage. He is part of that debate.
The whole of that letter is based on a wrong interpretation of the law. And the fundamental word that flows through the whole of those sections in the letter, Mr. Speaker, is the word solicit. Members don't solicit. They solicit from us. We don't solicit. That body is supposed to be concerned with economic and anti-corruption. Helping a church or a funeral is neither corruption nor economic crime. And to that extent, therefore, Mr. Speaker, may we make it clear to the author of that letter and all those who think like him that we shall disobey it.
So I want to tell my colleagues that that is an opinion we should not go and look for money, solicit. But if we have Harambee, please invite us. We will do. Some of us, we believe in the giving. The Bible and the Quran says, give and you get more. We build mosques, we build madrasas.
Mr. Speaker, I think what we should really deal with, that the anti-corruption authority should deal with, is where the process of Harambee is misused and corruption comes into that process.
If you look at what is contained, just slightly above your head, we have our coat of arms, and below there it's written Harambee. Yeah? And even honorable members, when you look at the coat of arms just behind your seat here, it's written Harambee. It is a concept, Mr. Speaker, that was conceptualized by our forefathers.
Really, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission needs to appreciate and fully understand the role we play. And I think, the commission should not be so focused on, petty issues as against the serious issues of corruption, facing this country.
Well, away from that, President Uhuru Kenyatta today did open the 12th East African Magistrates and Judges Association Annual General Conference here in Nairobi. The judges and magistrates from the Commonwealth nations convened to discuss administration of justice in the region. Sharon Mumanye has that report.
The conference being held in Nairobi has drawn over 300 delegates from the East African region, including South Sudan and Zanzibar, with all the chief justices from the East African countries represented in the conference, led by the Chief Justice of Kenya, Willy Mutunga.
We have an obligation to accelerate and deepen the transformation process so that we improve on the quality of service delivery. The challenges of transition that all institutions face must not be allowed to snowball into full-blown crisis.
The judicial branch of our nations have a critical role to play in realizing the dreams and expectations of East Africans. At the same time, it must help fight the vices that threaten our peace, progress, social harmony, and happiness.
Uhuru urged the delegates to seek a common judicial and legislative approach to the cross-border challenges that plague the East African nations.
Increasingly, East African nations are experiencing challenges that are cross-border in nature. Terrorism, human trafficking, illicit arms trade, smuggling, poaching, narcotics, amongst others, are a shared blight across the region and can only be effectively combated by close cooperation and coordination by our nations.
The Kenyan Chief Justice called on East African leaders to respect the rule of law to avoid political crisis. He said that the transformation of the judiciary in Kenya, which has been criticized as being too radical, has been necessary to restore public faith in the institution.
The judiciary will continue to do its part as mandated by the Constitution, but to remain alive to the fact that for there to be access in the administration of justice, there has to be robust independence of the judiciary and constructive interdependence with the other arms of government.
Sharma Manyi, KTN.
The Ministry of Labour has now constituted a task force to vet and look into the licensing of agencies engaged in recruiting Kenyans for employment in foreign countries. The task force, whose members include the Court Secretary General Francis Atwoli and the Federation of Kenya Employers head Jacqueline Mugo, among others, is expected to complete its work within the next 3 months. During this period, the ban on the export of domestic workers to the Middle East and the Gulf region will remain in place. The ban was effected after several reports of mistreatment of Kenyans working in the Middle East were registered.
The mandate of the task force shall be to propose measures to address challenges that have led to work in foreign countries, recommend effective regulations for recruitment agencies to deal with unscrupulous and unethical employment agencies, vet and recommend list of bona fide recruitment agencies to operate in Kenya, and develop in consultation with stakeholders an all-inclusive action plan to mitigate future challenges. And I repeat, those foreigners who have been recruiting our people from here, it's not going to business as usual.
Let's talk about conservation now. And here's an interesting question. Do private conservationists have the technical know-how to protect the endangered rhinos from poachers in the country? Well, that's a question that has led to the government, through the Kenya Wildlife Service, to come up with some new measures to support the ranch owners in conserving the endangered animal species. Lofty Matambo has just returned from Solio and Oljogi ranches in Laikipia County with this report.
It's a 45-minute flight from Nairobi to Oljogi Ranch, a private-owned wildlife conservancy that covers about 58,000 acres of the beautiful Laikipia County land. Flora and fauna is in abundance here, and the scenery is replicated at Solio Ranch, which is about 18,000 acres in size. Solio was a donation way back in the 70s to support the government in conserving wildlife. It is home to the endangered species of rhinos, both black and white.
As we are talking currently, this is one of the ranches that, one of the private ranches that holds a large concentration of the rhinos in this country. There are about 450 of them here, both black and white.
We had probably 30 years of no poaching on Oljogi. Unfortunately, in the last 4 years, I think we have lost 11 or 12 rhino, 9 this year, which is catastrophic.
The government has deployed 64 officers, both from the GSU and game rangers, to boost security in the ranches. There are plans to increase this number to 87. The informal settlements around the protected ranches are also considered as loopholes to the safety of the highly valued rhinos.
Anyone can walk in through that fence. It's basically to stop wildlife, and especially rhino from leaving the property. Any other animal, be it buffalo, hippo, elephant, can move in and out.
La hawajalemewa kwa sababu jukumu letu ni kwamba kama Kenya Wildlife Service tuko na hiyo kisheria, tunatakana kuwasaidia na kufanya pamoja na kushirikiana pamoja.
Losing 9 rhinos in Oljogi Ranch alone in this year is alarming. One question remaining is, what specific measures will the government take to end this menace?
China and Thailand, who are majorly being accused of being the major consumers, we are engaging them at all levels, as at the political level, at also the leadership level. Some of them think, like when we talk of ivory, they think it just falls out of the elephant, just like feathers. So they have not yet learned to know that it is bloody.
Wildlife forms a great part of the tourism industry, a keystone of Kenya's economy. As Kenya's second foreign exchange earner after tea, tourism remains a key priority in our country. Lofty Matambo, KTN in Laikipia County.
You're watching KTN Prime. I'll be right back after this break with all the day's latest business news, so stick around.
You're watching KTN Prime.
Welcome to KTN Business, and we get to start with some good news today for motorists, that is. They have a reason to smile after the Energy Regulatory Commission announced a reduction in fuel prices effective midnight tonight, easing pressure on the pockets of consumers. From tomorrow, motorists will pay 110 shillings and 89 cents for a litre of petrol, 75 cents cheaper than the month before. Diesel prices also fall by 1 shilling and 69 cents to retail at 100 shillings and 67 cents. Meanwhile, kerosene will now retail at 80 shillings and 88 cents after a 75% reduction. ERC says that the reduction was occasioned by a decline in international crude oil prices, the reduction in landing costs at the port of Mombasa, and reduced demurrage costs that have fallen from 31 cents a litre last year to 16 cents this year, thanks to the closure of the inefficient Mombasa refinery. Now, this is the second month in a row that the ERC has reduced fuel prices, a move that is likely to cool the country's inflation rate. Fuel prices have a big effect on inflation, owing to the heavy reliance on diesel for transport, power generation and agriculture, while kerosene is of course used in many households for cooking and lighting. The country's inflation rate fell from a high of 8.36% in August to 6.6% in September. And news just in from Brussels, Belgium, is that after 7 long years, the East Africa community has finally signed the Economic Partnership Agreement with the European Union. According to a press statement from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the EAC and the EU reached an agreement on the 3 outstanding areas and finally put to bed the drawn-out negotiations. This is great news for exporters who had to pay up to 30% in taxes to export their products to the EU following the delay in signing this deal. However, EU officials have previously said that it would take up to 3 months before they can complete the ratification process that will see Kenya get preferential access to the EU. Exports to the EU support the $1 billion horticultural industry. And if you're thinking of owning your own home, well, there are some players in the real estate sector that think that might be a bridge too far. Led by real estate investment firm Shelter Afrique, they're of the opinion that churning out more rental units could actually be the solution to Kenya's acute housing shortage. KTN's Charles Gitonga has the details.
In social circles, owning a home is ranked among the biggest successes. But with the huge expenditure that comes with acquiring or building one, the dream to be a home owner has remained a mirage for many. However, players in real estate are now changing the rules of the game.
So it's not really true that everyone really wants to buy a house. So we want to start also challenging some of these myths and make it clear to everyone that it's okay, it's quite normal to rent. You might really have some very good reasons for that.
Players in the sector say they want to change the perception that being a homeowner is the ultimate success. To achieve this, they want the state to set up rules of engagement that will clearly regulate the landlord-tenant relationship and establish a standard pricing mechanism.
Any investor in any business, he wants to have a clear situation in which he knows that he's operating in an environment that is certain.
This certainty will increase investment, encourage the growth of rental market, and thereby reduce the housing deficit in the country and the continent at large.
You need to create a fiscal framework. You need to create tax incentives. You need to create all this framework around rental to attract the investment.
Developers are quoting the high cost of land, construction materials, and lack of tax incentives as some of the biggest impediments to investments, which have contributed to skyrocketing of rents in the country. They are therefore working with the government to eliminate such bottlenecks and increase the supply of affordable and decent housing for all. Charles Gitonga, KTN.
And that's the case for renting. Elsewhere, Uchumi Supermarkets has priced its rights issue at 9 shillings. This is a slight discount from the 10 shillings and 15 cents that the share is currently trading at. The retailer will be offering 99.5 million new shares to shareholders as it seeks to raise capital to finance expansion. According to Uchumi, the rights issue will likely net 896 million shillings. Now, the government has committed to take up its full rights, representing 13.8% of the issue, setting Uchumi off on the right track. Shareholders will get new shares on the ratio of 3 new shares for every 8 that are held. Uchumi will close its register on the 22nd of October, with the new shares scheduled to start trading on December 29th. And farmers in Turbo constituency in Uasin Gishu County have demonstrated over the exploitation by middlemen in the purchase of their maize. Now, the farmers point an accusing finger at middlemen who are said to shortchange them when looking for markets for their maize. According to farmers, while a 90-kilogram bag of maize would retail at 2,000 shillings, the middlemen are only giving farmers 1,500 shillings for their produce. The farmers took to the streets to voice their anger, blocking the busy highway for hours. Tired of being shortchanged, the farmers now want the government to buy their maize for 3,500 shillings. A drop in maize prices in the market has seen millers lower flour prices, with a 2-kilogram packet selling for 104 shillings.
Itakuwa vigumu kwa kila mkulima kufanya mashughuli zake ya mwaka, kulipa karo na mambo mengine ya kazi. Kwa hivyo tunaomba serikali iweze kuweka takriban shilingi 3,500 kwa gunia ili kwamba mkulima aweze kujimudu.
Felix Koskei ambaye ni minister
wa agriculture atangaze bei ya wakulima kuanzia sasa. Nafikiri hawa wakulima wote watarudi kazini na watazingatia maneno ya serikali, wanasema tufanye kazi, tuachane maneno ya siasa. Lakini sasa wametutafikia siasa kwa kukosa kutusaidia hata.
And the Kenya National Bureau of Standards plans to upgrade its laboratories in Mombasa, Kisumu and Eldoret in the next 3 years in a bid to increase capability to serve its customers. And as Joy Doreen Bira tells us in this following report, to curb influx of counterfeit goods in the country as well. Kenyans can now use their mobile phones to verify the originality of products that they've purchased.
Whoever makes the standards controls the market. This statement could be the mantra that the Kenya Bureau of Standards has lived by over the last 4 decades. But as the Bureau marks its 40th anniversary, it is faced with challenges such as rapid technology changes, counterfeiting of KEBS marks, impersonation of its staff, and smuggling of substandard goods into the country. The agency is getting innovative to combat these challenges. For starters, KEBS has introduced mobile services to allow Kenyans verify quality inspectors and marketing surveillance officers sent to make industrial visits to goods outlets. To verify if the standard mark has been issued by KEBS, Kenyans will be required to send a text message to the number 223. Kenyans can verify KEBS staff details by texting the inspector's human resource number to 223. The Bureau has also introduced a toll-free line as a remedy to the challenges faced.
Also launching today what is called the Notify Kenya to enable facilitate international trade so that whatever other countries worldwide are actually imposing, then our business community are aware of this ahead of time.
The Bureau will also upgrade its labs in Eldoret, Mombasa and Kisumu and automate its quality management systems. Last year, KEBS received testing equipment from Trademark East Africa valued at 63 million shillings. Joy Doreen Bira, KTN Business.
Well, that's it for business. Coming up next on KTN Prime is all the latest in sports.
That's right, and it is back to the drawing board as Kenya Sevens team returns from Australia.
Also, we bring you a call for a truce as Athletics Kenya reaches out to rebels.
And was the Marrakesh trip worth it for Harambee Stars? Stay tuned to KTN for all that and more. Welcome to KTN Sports. It is back to the drawing board as Kenya Sevens team returns from Australia, and the Athletics Kenya has reached out. Let me take that again. Kenya could field a full-strength squad during the second leg of the IRB World Series in Dubai in December, if talks to be spearheaded by head coach Paul True succeeds. Kenya finished 14th in the first leg held in Gold Coast, Australia last weekend. The Kenya team arrived back this morning and the coach hinted at having the rugby union open up talks with the senior players who were left out of the opening leg. However, Fabian Orlando and Augustine Lugondo returned home with injuries, something that the coach says was a blow to the team. True, whose dream and promises is an Olympic slot in Rio in 2016 for Kenya, says Kenya should have done better in Australia considering the kind of opposition the Shujaa faced.
Performance is not about going out there and socialize and just taking part, and I think that is what the union is driving. We need to get this team to perform at a higher level, and each player will have to commit to that. And once we've done that, and the players are happy, with whatever grievances they've had, and the technical bench is happy, then I think we can start, moving forward as a team and hopefully, take the team to that promised land.
Let's move on to athletics. And Cornered Athletics Kenya chairman Isaiah Kiplagat is in a reconciliatory mood. Kiplagat, who is facing rebellion from 14 regional chairmen, is inviting them for talks that could see his and his regional heads talk in one voice. Athletics regional chairman and their delegates met in Nairobi last week, during which they emboldened their call for Kiplagat to leave office.
We are for reconciliation. We are for working together. We are for this country. We are asking them, let us have your issues in writing. Once we receive them in writing, we come here and sit together. We go one by one, like we did in 2013.
The Kenya national football team Harambee Stars coach Bobby Williamson has cited lack of concentration as the main reason as to why Kenya lost to Morocco by 3-0 during their international friendly last night. Captain Victor Wanyama and goalkeeper Arnold Rigi concurred with their coach. Victor Ogale reports from Marrakesh.
Having defeated Mauritania 5-0 a few days ago, Morocco came into this match seeking to continue with the scoring spree against Kenya. The match began on a moderate pace, but after 20 minutes, Morocco's attack line, led by Mbak Boussoufa, gave Kenya's defense, marshaled by David Owino, Jackson Saleh and Edwin Ofula, a difficult time. Kenya's attack line did not quite give Morocco goalkeeper Yassin Bono at half-time, and the towering custodian could even afford time to leave his posts. Kenya only managed 2 shots on goal, one from Ayub Timbe in the first half and substitute Enoch Agwanda on the 92nd minute. The Stars could only hold the Atlas Lions for 77 minutes before Norway-based El Mehdi, who plays for Alocins FC, broke the deadlock. Lokomotiv Moscow's Mbak Boussoufa scored from the spot kick after Tusker FC's fullback Abud Omar brought down Hamed Allah Abderrazak. Morocco's third goal was netted by Raja Casablanca's Joao Moussine. After the match, coach Bobby Williamson said he was happy with the team's performance as most of the players lacked international exposure.
The fullbacks had a hard job tonight with guys coming in overlap, and we gave him a first look at Timby, but I never really seen him offensively. He was too busy defending.
We have a young team, we don't have experience. You see it's very hard to concentrate 90 minutes, so we just have to work on also concentration.
Simple mistakes, things that you cannot do from at this level, things that you do, if you do at this level, then you get punished. But it's a new team, so I hope the guys have learned.
The team departs Morocco Tuesday evening and will arrive in Nairobi Wednesday afternoon. To many soccer fans, a 3-0 defeat is humiliating, but according to Harambee Stars head coach Bobby Williamson and his team, this is just a learning experience. Victor Ogale, KTN at the Marrakesh Stadium, Morocco.
And to motorsports now, where the penultimate leg of the 2014 KCB Kenya National Rally Championships will be held in Kisumu and its environs this weekend. Rally enthusiasts will have an opportunity to catch the cars at close proximity at Chemise, an area designated for Section 4. Highway Africa supported the Kisumu event with a donation of 5 million shillings, with the competitors covering a total of 150 kilometers. With only 2 rounds remaining this year, series leader Baldev Chaga and Carl Tundo must earn points to ensure that nothing unexpected happens.
The Big Q in association with Total Quartz.
Well, it is the issue of the disappearing or vanishing cabinet secretaries. We did ask you whether you believe cabinet secretaries should appear before MPs every Tuesday as demanded by the National Assembly.
Let's take a look at the results. Well, 43% say yes, they think it's a good idea. 57% of you say no. Thank you for your feedback. I'll take a look at some SMSs here. This one from Catherine in Kakamega. She says, I think Parliament should look for other business and issues to discuss. Summoning the CSs every Tuesday is out of the question. They have other things to do rather than appear in Parliament.
I have a yes here from Colin Sika at Colin Sika says, yes, CSs are not running private companies.
Okay, another one here says no. MPs will be misusing public funds, which could be channeled to development of infrastructure, not footing their sitting allowances. The CSs should be accountable to their superiors.
Wanyugi wa Machinery here says, yes, it's good so that Kenyans may be aware of how these managers are working in their ministries.
All right. Well, here is a no from Waithira in Githurai. And you say no, weekly is such a short time. Every 6 months is a lot better.
And Oramat Morintat says no, it will yield no fruits. It will be the formality we've grown accustomed to with the tyranny of numbers.
Well, thank you very much for your feedback this evening and for taking part in our big queue.
Well, that's all we had prepared for you tonight. Thank you very much for joining us on KTN Prime. Thank you for your feedback. Let's do this again tomorrow. My name is Wilson Mburu. Good night.
That's right. We look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. I'm Nancy Kachingira, and Marisha Oiti was our sign language interpreter. Good night.